Welcome back, Commanders. My name is Alchrist, and today I'll be briefing you on your brand new T-Doll, the leader of the Monsoon Squad, Zhaohui. Zhaohui is a Vanguard SMG-wielding, knife-grappling, field-swinging T-Doll. She excels in jumping across the arena and flanking enemies. She mainly deals with hydro damage and AoE damage. I will mention that in all my guides I will be referring to Confectant's Index as skill points, since this is much easier to understand. Zhaohui has two methods of generating skill points, starting with a passive, Shadow Strike. She has a mechanic that allows her to place and target imperturbable arrows onto the field, but henceforth I will simply be calling it her arrows. At the end of her actions, she can select one of her arrows within 9 tiles and land within a 2-tile vicinity of the targeted arrow. She will then gain 1 skill point. I want to clarify something regarding the wording on this passive. By the way it's been phrased, you assume she needs to have teleported to an arrow to gain skill points, which is untrue. She doesn't even need an arrow on the field at all. Her passive will simply generate 1 skill point at the end of her actions. Her passive also allows her to perform an action support once per turn if an ally deals targeted damage within her attack range. She will follow up and deal hydro damage equal to 80% of her attack and reducing 2 stability. She will also apply the Hydro debuff damp onto the target, reducing any healing by 40%. If a second instance of damp is applied, this will instead turn into congestion, which prevents any healing. Zhaohui's second method of generating skill points is the active skill 1, Shadow Snare, which has a 1-turn cooldown. It attacks all enemies within 4 tiles within one selected direction from Zhaohui, dealing physical damage equal to 110% of her attack and reducing 3 stability. Zhaohui will get a skill point for each target hit. If any of the targets hit had a Hydro debuff, she will also stun them. She will then gain a 10% crit rate buff for her next active attack. Zhaohui's active skill 2 is Wanderer's Acumen, which has no cost or cooldown. She targets an empty tile within 6 tiles and summons one of her arrows. All enemies within 2 tiles of the arrow will be attacked with AoE Hydro damage equal to 90% of her attack and reducing 1 stability. She will also inflict a Hydro debuff called Presence of Mind onto the enemy for 2 turns. Any ally that attacks an enemy with this debuff will recover HP equal to 20% of their attack. Arrows last 4 turns on the field, and you can tell how much longer it has with the number dictated above it. There doesn't seem to have a limit on how many arrows you can have out at once. Zhaohui's basic attack is Piercing Wind. It has a range of 6 and deals physical damage equal to 80% of her attack and reducing 2 stability. Zhaohui's ultimate is Skybound Leap, which costs 6 skill points. She selects an arrow within 9 tiles and teleports to any tile within 2 tiles of the selected arrow. After landing, she'll attack the closest enemy to her within 6 tiles and deals hydro damage equal to 160% of her attack and reducing 2 stability, while also applying congestion for 2 turns. When deploying Zhaohui onto the field, the key element to playing her is setting up her arrows in key locations for her to teleport to. She's an easy way to teleport back and forth to key areas around the map, skipping over terrain and taking high ground easily to her advantage. Use her fantastic movement to reposition and hit and run. Her arrows actually block tiles. While allies and enemies can still walk over it, it does prevent anyone from occupying the same tile. This can be helpful to deny locations in the map. When it comes to a basic rotation, on turn 1, use active skill 2 to set up an arrow. On turn 2, use active skill 1. On turn 3, use ultimate. And on turn 4, use active skill 1 again. And then this loop repeats. This assumes you can hit at least one target with her active skill 1. If you can hit multiple enemies, you can speed up her ultimate cast. On the flip side, if she somehow isn't in range to hit an active skill 1, then it slows down her skill point generation. You can also use active skill 2 more often if you want more arrows in the field for her to teleport to. But this will slow down her ults unless she can make it back with hitting more targets with her active skill 1. But this will offer her more utility around the map. In either case, it's ideal to use her active skill 1 before ulting so she has the bonus crit rate. On to her pros and cons. Using her arrows makes her fun to play with her teleporting across the battlefield. While Hydro debuffs aren't the most powerful, she does have easy access to apply them. Both her spammable active skills are AoE, which can trigger effects like previous action supports. And it's possible for her to stun multiple enemies at once. As for her cons, Similar to other vanguards, her usefulness is rather niche. Her damage isn't as good as a Sentinel T-Doll, and doesn't provide the utility like support T-Dolls, making her usefulness limited in certain modes. The only good single target multiplier she has is the ult, which can take a while to recharge. And because she needs to teleport to an arrow to ult, if you haven't placed them in good locations, she might end up in less optimal places to shoot from. For example, she might get stuck having to ult an enemy while they're behind cover. Zhaohui's best weapon is a signature, the Juggernaut. It grants crit damage, and its trait gives movement up for the next turn if she's moved at least 5 in the current turn. Just an FYI, the distance she used to teleport across tiles does not count towards this counter. Its effect, Root Out All Evil, will increase damage by 10% if any weakness is exploited. It also grants a 10% crit damage bonus versus Hydro debuff targets. If you got the Battle Pass, Zhaohui can use the classified manuscript. It grants attack boost and the same movement up trait as the Juggernaut. Battle Rush ignores 5% of defense for each tile Zhaohui has moved this turn, capping at 5 tiles. If she has moved at least 5 tiles, 1 buff will be removed from the target she attacks. Zhaohui can also use the Savrog. It also has attack boost, and its trait increases damage dealt by 5% for each debuff the enemy has, up to a 20% cap. Its effect, Guiding Glory. If Zhaohui or another allied support uses support attacks, Zhaohui will get a crit rate buff. Otherwise, use any other elite SMG for its base stats. If you do not have any spare elite weapons, her namesake is the CS LS06. It has the same movement up trait as the Juggernaut, and its effect, Wind Chaser, will increase damage if she kills a target. Otherwise, use the Papasha 41. It has the same trait as the Savrog, and its effect is High Priority Target, which increases damage against large targets. Her attachments follow the DPS archetype of attack percent, attack, crit rate, and crit damage. A reminder that the only attachment that can have the crit damage is the muzzle. When it comes to which attachment sets to farm, her best set is Phase Strike. It increases damage by 15% as long as they have an elemental debuff, which she easily applies. When it comes to her fixed keys, the best ones to obtain are 201, Weakness Exposed. She will deal 10% more damage to Hydro debuffed enemies. 203, Detest Evil. If her active skill 1 only hits 1 target, she will deal an extra instance of fixed damage equal to 10% of her attack and applies Damp. 403, Light of Justice. When using active skill 2, Zhaohui will gain Quick Barrier and knock enemies back by 2 tiles. Quick Barrier will reduce the next targeted damage she takes by 60%. This is a good key to increase survivability and knocking enemies out of cover. She can use Fixed Key 603 Dry Humor if you need a way to cleanse buffs from a target. Fixed Keys 401 and 601 are situational and are not recommended for a core build. Her common key is Sawano's Realm. At the start of each turn, her next action will have a 10% crit damage boost. Other keys she can steal are Talolo's Afterglow, increasing damage when below max skill points. Bepley's Heart Melting Strike increases damage against enemies Zhaohui has more mobility than. Or Dushevnier's Artistic Inspiration, increasing face damage against enemies with less mobility than her. Otherwise, any common key that increases attack or crit values would work. Next, we'll have a quick look at Fortifications. At V1, Zhaohui will immediately summon an arrow at the start of battle next to her. She will also gain 1 extra action support per turn, and when at least 1 arrow is on the field, she'll get a 10% damage increase. At V2, the range of her active skill 2 is increased to 9 tiles, and hits all enemies within 3 tiles now. The damage multiplier of this skill is also increased to 110% of her attack and reducing 2 stability instead of just 1. At V3, her ultimate will now reduce 4 stability and applies Presence of Mind to the target. Plus, when she teleports with the ult, she will bring any allies within 2 tiles of her along for the ride. This is a good breakpoint for her as the individual buffs she's gained from V1 and V2 and the extra added utility to teleport her team. At V4, her active skill 1 will just stun targets without the requirement of enemies having a Hydro debuff. For each target hit, she'll also recover stability. The crit rate bonus she gets is now increased to 20%, plus another 5% for each target she hit. At V5, she no longer has a range restriction on which arrows she can teleport to, and she gains an extra action support each turn, bringing it up to 3. She'll also deal 20% more damage to any targets with 2 debuffs or more. And at V6, her ultimate damage multiplier is increased to 180% of her attack and will also have a 30% crit damage bonus. Each time she uses ultimate, she'll gain a 10% attack increase that can stack up to 3 times. To finish off, we'll have a quick look at suitable teammates to feel along Zhaohui. Her best teammate is Sabrina. Not only can she help draw aggro away from Zhaohui, Sabrina can also implant Hydro weakness for her to make use of. If you're putting together a Hydro team, then Tololo would fit as well. Zhaohui can help build like spike stacks for Tololo. And if you want fast and mobile dolls that can clear maps, then utilize her with other vanguards like Urid and Diane. She can pair with Peritya, as her active skill 1 and 2 are both AoE skills, triggering Peritya's support actions. Otherwise, use Zhaohui as a flex for clearing general mobbing content. Here are some examples of team compositions. And that about wraps up this character briefing for Zhaohui. I hope this guide helps, and if you have any other suggestions on a build of teammates, make sure to leave a comment below. Until next time, Commanders.